2020 was a year of nostalgia for me. With just a big few racing games releasing this year, the ones that left the biggest impact turned out to be the smaller ones that reminded me why I loved simple arcade racers so much. I play other types of games as well, and 2020 had some pretty heavy hitters that I'll remember for the foreseeable future. I don't think there have been enough games I enjoyed this year to compile a list of the 10 best ones, so I'm keeping it down to just 7. Keep in mind this is my personal list and that it may be different to what you consider to be the best games in 2020, and that's fine. That said, let me know your list in the comments down below. Without further ado, let's get right into it. Dirt 5 was a real surprise to me. I've always enjoyed the more arcade-oriented games in the series, but never to the point where I'd say I love them. Going in, I had very low expectations for Dirt 5 because I was sure this was gonna be yet another Codemasters games I beat and never play again. But there's so much of Drive Club in this game that I kept coming back to it long after I beat it, which isn't surprising because many of the people who developed Drive Club also worked in Dirt 5. The physics are solid and fun, and the game looks gorgeous under the right conditions. It's just a game I keep booting at least once a week to play a couple of races in free play and time trials, just because it feels good, and that's why it's my number 7 in this list. I played the first 3 Tony Hawk games to death on the PS1, and they were responsible for developing much of my taste in music. What I love about those games is just how easy it is to pick up and play a few quick short sessions. The career has always been a highlight, and I had a ton of fun collecting everything and making sure I checked every box on every stage, but the real fun was at trying to beat my own best scores. When Activision announced Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1+2, I was cautiously optimistic because the remake for the first Tony Hawk's Pro Skater HD, was pretty unremarkable, but they nailed with this new one. It's a love letter to fans of the original games that perfectly recreates every stage and everything that made those games so great. The soundtrack still remains awesome with just a few omissions, but also some pretty awesome new additions. The gameplay not only reminds of older games, but it's a lot more refined, and with the overall speed of the game increased, there's a sense of fluidity that the older games didn't have. They really went in depth with character customization, and with the Create a Park feature allowing you to share your creations online, there's a limitless pool of custom tracks for you to enjoy. And with access to other people's best scores online, I may have realized I wasn't as good at this game as I thought back when I was a kid, but trying to improve my runs is fun enough for me to keep coming back to this game, and this is why it's my number 6. As a kid who grew up in the 90s, I had the opportunity to experience firsthand many of the classics we know today like Virtua Racing, Daytona USA, Sega Rally, Crazy Taxi, and many others. Hot Shot Racing is a combination of everything that made all of those games great while still having so much personality that it stands on its own. You have a bunch of different characters with different personalities that shit talk all the time just like the old days. Each of these characters have 4 different cars, all very different from one another, and that's exactly what I like about this game. Despite being an arcade racer, the cars feel so different from one another that you need to learn how each one drives in order to master them. There are plenty of tracks, each with its own theme, all designed for high-speed racing. You also have your over-the-top announcer, and the soundtrack is really awesome. This is a game that references so much of the past that if you played any of those classic games, you'll be going, cool, this is from this game, wow, this is from that other game, all the time. It's a throwback made with all the care in the world that I hope to see more of in the future, and that's why it's number 5 on this list. Ridge Racer Type 4 meets Initial D. That's the best way I can describe Inertial Drift. This would easily be my number 1 game on this list if it weren't for a few surprises that came out this year. Inertial Drift has the same cool vibe from Ridge Racer Type 4, where you feel like it's just you and the track. Nothing to distract you, nothing to get in your way. And it gets you into such a chill vibe that it feels good to turn your brain off and just play for the sake of playing. But Inertial Drift is not a carbon copy of Ridge Racer Type 4. It's a love letter to the game, yes, but it's a twin-stick racer which makes it the most unique game on this list. You brake and accelerate just like any other racing game, and with the left stick we control the direction of the car, while with the right one you control the angle of your drifts. You need to use both at the same time to control your car, and with each car being so different from one another, you need to learn and adapt to drive them well. There's just so much content in this game that I haven't unlocked everything yet, despite having put so many hours into it. You unlock stuff every step of the way, which is an incentive that will keep you playing because you want to see what's the next unlock. It's a feeling that only older games convey, and Inertial Drift nails that. The soundtrack is inspired by the soft house style of Ridge Racer Type 4, and it adds a lot to the overall atmosphere of the game. It's a game you can play because you want to master it, but also a game you can play because you just want to relax. That's what it does to you, and that's why it's number 4 on my list. Technically, this one released in 2019, but the PS4 port came out this year, so I'm using it as an excuse to put it on this list. This one might be a bit weird for people who have been following the channel for a while because I've never talked about it before, but Harvest Moon is one of my favorite franchises. For the longest time, Harvest Moon Back to Nature for the PS1 was my favorite game in the series because of how it focuses on gameplay, with the story serving just as a backdrop as it should in a game like this, and how unintrusive the tutorials are. I couldn't stand any of the Harvest Moon games for the DS and 3DS because they were total opposites to Back to Nature. With long drawn out story segments and unskippable tutorials, they were responsible for turning me off the series entirely. Doraemon Story of Seasons, a game I expected nothing from, turned out to be my new favorite in the series. Doraemon is a well-loved character that's huge in Japan, which in and of itself could make for an easy cash grab, but the developers poured so much into this game that it makes Back to Nature look bad. Okay, not bad, but it truly gave me a new perspective for the series that made me re-evaluate how I feel about Back to Nature with its flaws and all. Doraemon Story of Seasons has a story, yes, but it's skippable if you're not into it. If you decide to watch through the whole introduction, you learn that this is by far the game with the most interesting story that goes beyond the usual
"My grandpa used to run this farm, but he's too old and sick, and now it's my responsibility to take over the farming duties and take it to the next level"
that the series is known for. If you're familiar with the other games, you know what to expect from this one. Farming, mining, fishing, building relationships with the villagers that will eventually lead to new items and new storylines, upgrading your house and facilities to unlock new machinery that will allow you to produce more stuff, etc. What this game does that no other mainline game in the series has ever done is that it throws elements of the Doraemon universe into it. As you progress through the game, you unlock the same gadgets from the show that truly add to the gameplay flow, like for example the ability to fast travel anywhere with the Anywhere door. Despite loving the series, I was never into the graphics, but Doraemon Story of Seasons looks so gorgeous with its watercolor paint look that I want this to be the new baseline for future games. It looks great. This is a game that easily makes me sink too many hours without realizing, and there's just so much replay value here that it's hard to put down even after completing the story. And for that reason, it's my number 3 game of 2020. I'm a huge fan of the Yakuza series for many reasons, but the main one is that it doesn't take itself seriously. This is a series that can go from moments of high stakes and seriousness to moments where you're basically helping out a guy in underwear find the hottest porn around town. It's all of these different moments that give this game the comical relief that's become a staple in the franchise, giving a much lighthearted feel to storylines that can be pretty heavy at times. Yakuza Like a Dragon introduces player to Kasuga Ichiban, the new protagonist for the series taking over Kazuma Kiryu. While Kiryu is a tough guy with a heart of gold, Ichiban has the same heart of gold but wrapped in a naive exterior that makes him look stupid half of the time, and you will feel sorry for him in many points throughout the story. Out of all the games in the series, Like a Dragon is by far the most over the top and the most comical one. They went all in on that aspect that the series is known for while still keeping the high stake moments as well. Yakuza games have always been beat 'em ups, but Like a Dragon changes to an RPG-style battle system that have you choosing from menu prompts to tell what the characters should do next. It's a controversial change, but I think it works here because they added a lot of depth. There are lots of different classes and a ridiculous amount of subsystems to discover and learn. In the minigames... The minigames, man, Yakuza games are famous for its side activities, and Yakuza Like a Dragon has the wackiest ones in the series. There is one where you drive around the neighborhood in one of those carts homeless people push around to collect cans laying around. There's also one where you have a Mario Kart clone within the game called Dragon Kart where you compete against some of the characters. And there's another one where you have to watch a boring movie in the theater and press button prompts on time to beat the sheep out of the picture so that you don't fall asleep. There are many others, but these are some of my favorites. This is a series that despite its ups and downs, it never lets up, and for that reason, it's number 2 on my list. There's one thing you should know about me. I love Japan. Since I was a kid, I had this deep fascination with the country and its culture, and having the opportunity to spend 7 years of my life living there is an experience I'll never forget. And as a kid with such a passion for the land of the rising sun, samurai were one of the topics I used to read a lot about. Vagabond by Takehiko Inoue is one of my favorite manga that deepened my passion for the culture, and to have a game draw from the same well is something I never thought I'd see. Ghost of Tsushima is a game with a lot of respect for the Japanese culture and the samurai history that shows a lot of the values that set Japan apart from the rest of the world. I truly could spend a good amount of time talking about this game from a cultural perspective and how it does away with the tropes of Japanese game development, breathing some much needed fresh air that I hope will inspire Japanese developers to deviate a bit more from the traditional style of storytelling and gameplay mechanics that Japanese games are often associated to. This game is without a doubt the most gorgeous game I have ever played, bar none. The environments and lighting in this game are so jaw-dropping that it's hard to believe it came out for the PS4. And if the developers were able to extract so much from this hardware, I can't wait to see what they do with the possible Ghost of Tsushima 2 for the PS5. What makes Ghost of Tsushima so great though is just how well it integrates a lot of the culture it draws inspiration from into the actual gameplay. And it does so in such a manner that it deviates a bit from the staples of open world games. Everything unfolds organically. You roam around and you find a villager in need of help that sends you on a quest to do something or retrieve something. Along the way to do that something or retrieve that something, you may come across a fox or kitsune in the Japanese folklore. If you let these foxes lead you, you will come to an Inari Shrine, which is one of the collectibles in the game, and again, one more reference to the Japanese culture. Doing these side activities will get you to places that will truly make you stop in your tracks at how beautiful they look. The hot springs in particular look beautiful. The game is absolutely filled with the small things, and it has an extra meaning to those who understand where they draw from, which makes you appreciate the game even more. Yet another highlight is the combat. I know it's cheesy, but it truly makes you feel like a samurai, and its beautiful animation work makes everything look fluid and cohesive. The standoffs are a cool mechanism to kick off battles, and some of the duels against leaders can be pretty tense. That's all to say Ghost of Tsushima is the complete package for people who love Japanese culture and want something a bit different from the norm when it comes to open world games. It checks all of my boxes. It's a game I'll be playing and replaying for years and years to come, and I hope this is the start of a new franchise because I definitely want to see more of this in the future. For all of these reasons, Ghost of Tsushima dominates the number 1 spot on my list of best games of 2020. And that's my list. Despite not having many games that were of my interest, 2020 definitely had some memorable releases that would tide me over to 2021, which is promising to be packed with racing games again, and I can't wait. Hope you guys have an awesome 2021. Talk to you on the next one. Bye.